Welcome to Mentoring in Real Life, where we talk about what it takes to find and be a great mentor. I'm Angela, and together with my co-host Bill, we know the power of mentoring and what it can do in your life on both sides of the table. If you're interested in learning tips, tricks, and hearing stories about mentoring, you're in the right place. Come join us. Well, hey, Bill Bonwit, how you doing today?
Never been this happy, Angela. How about you?
Great, and I'm calling you Bill Bonwit because we have a guest that you're about to introduce.
Yeah, how about that? So while we certainly have our own experiences about mentoring and we recognize and value other perspectives and stories. So this podcast is going to be a little bit different where we have our first ever guest. And today we have with us Bill Vavrik, who is the Senior Vice President and Board Member of Applied Research Associates. They are a services company working in national security, infrastructure, health solutions, and in energy and environmental programs. Bill started at ARA 25 years ago as an engineer, worked his way up, learning about all aspects of business development, managing people, managing budget, contracts, marketing, and more. Bill brings both brains and brawn to the podcast today with a PhD in civil engineering and having served as a volunteer firefighter in his community. As Senior Vice President, he oversees ARA's transportation and infrastructure sector. That's a sector of $70 million in its annual portfolio with a team of about 330 people, which includes the Engineering Sciences Division, Southern Division, and Transportation Division. So welcome, Bill. I gave the introduction, but we're certainly happy to have you add anything you like, sir.
Well, Bill, thank you, and Angela, thank you for allowing me to be your first guest on your podcast. This is it's wonderful to be that first guest. I'm blessed. I work at a 100% employee-owned company, where everybody that I work with is an owner. Everybody that I work with is engaged in the success of the organization, in their own success, and because of that, I get to see and be part of a group of folks that are trying to solve really hard problems for our customers. And they inspire me every day. They inspire me in crazy ways. And, I've been here 25 years. In fact, I guess you can see the little 25 right above my head there, the acrylic plaque that I got just a few months ago. And it's really been a lot of fun for me to learn from other people along the way to get to the place that I am today. As a senior manager in the company, as well as a member of our board of directors. And then outside of that, I'm also an elected member of the community. So I serve on our village board. So I've got a couple different board positions that I'm part of. I've got this engineering thing that I've done, and I love it that you guys found out that, way back when I was a firefighter, which actually in the world of mentorship, it has some unique things that go on, and maybe we'll even get into some of those as we talk today.
Well, so that's a perfect introduction, and you're encapsulating exactly why we wanted to have you on board here. I think you have lots and lots to offer, and lots of different aspects to look at, ways in which to look at mentorship, both from being the mentor, being the mentee, and also in different, very, very different sectors, whether it's business or in your community. I mean, those are extraordinary experiences that you have to share. So thanks once again for being here.
Hey, Bill Bonwit, we've talked in the past about conferences and meeting people and growing your network at conferences. We'd be remiss if we didn't point out that we met Bill Vavrik at the M conference that we just attended a couple of months ago. And it's just a demonstration of growing one's network through conference attendance.
Absolutely. So many thanks to Manager Tools for putting on such a great conference and bringing real professionals like Bill into the fray. So with that, why don't we get started? So we'll start off fairly general, and we'll dig as deeply as you'd like to, Bill. So how has mentoring impacted your life and career? In what parts of your career has mentoring been important?
I want to go back and rewind to, that earliest part of my career when I was a student in engineering. But when I was a student in engineering, I was actually also a volunteer firefighter in my community. And it was funny, as we were preparing for this podcast, and Angela had sent me some information. It's like, hey, these are the things I learned about you, looking online. I hadn't really thought of the firefighter component. I had been thinking about, because we met at the M conference. At the M conference, I had given a presentation about my role at ARA and what I do in my day job as an engineer, as a senior manager, as a board member. I had forgotten about those days gone by back, decades ago, when I was, would wear a pager on my hip, and anytime it went beep beep beep, I would jump in my truck and I would drive to the firehouse and I would put on the big bunker gear and get on a fire engine and go out and take care of what needed to be taken care of in the community. And this podcast about mentoring really got me thinking when I saw the reference to those days gone by, how much mentorship really happens in the fire service. Rarely called mentoring. In fact, I'm not sure that I heard those words back in my active days on the fire department. Nobody was a mentor. Nobody was a mentee. Certainly there was training, right? Always training, right? Because you got to continually sharpen the saw. But there were opportunities. I can remember as a young firefighter, even by the time I gotten certified, to be able to do all the basic things that a firefighter needs to do, both in fire operations and in emergency medicine, you still wanted to do more. So, what's it like to drive the fire engine? What's it like to run the pumps? What's it like to command the scene? What's it like to be the safety person and in order to do those next sets of jobs, yes, there's training, and training gets you the kind of nuts and bolts. But if you really want to know those, you need to seek someone out and get the right advice. You need to get information from somebody. So as I was thinking back and kind of, preparing for our conversation today, it got me to realize that I've had a lot more mentors in my life than I really originally thought, because I was thinking of the engineering mentors. I was thinking of the business mentors. I was thinking of the people who helped me, figure out that it's okay to work in public office, or it's okay to, how to act on a corporate board of directors, where you're representing the shareholders, which in our case is also the employees, because we're 100% employee owned. So all these mentors along my life have really impacted and changed my career trajectory in several different ways. And I think of it most of the time. And in fact, I was even struggling at times to find where I've been the mentor. So often I'm feel as what I can recall is where I'm the mentee, where I'm seeking the guidance of that more senior person, of somebody who's got an experience that I'd like to have and I don't have today. So how do I get there? How do I take that next step? Or how do I want a trajectory in my career. I want a trajectory in where I'm going and who I want to, look like, right? At one point in time in my engineering career, I wanted to be a guru, right? When I grew up, right? As you mentioned, Bill, I went to school way too long, and I did get a PhD in engineering, which really just meant I failed at graduating. I loved school. It was fun. I was doing research, and the cold world outside of graduate school just seemed like, ooh, I don't know. This is kind of warm and fuzzy here, and maybe it was a little bit comfortable. But as you get out, you realize that there's more to life, right? There's always that next step, that what is next, what is more, and who's going to help me get there? And through every part of my career, right? Whether it was firefighting, as a volunteer early on, around that same point in time, I was going through graduate school. And originally in graduate school, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get a master's degree. So I'm a civil engineer, right? So think about that as roads and bridges. And the way it was described to me is, with a bachelor's degree, you're going to design someone's subdivision. With a master's degree, you might design the interstate highway system or major roads and bridges. And with a PhD, you're setting policy, and you're developing the next generation of materials and or ways of solving the problem. And every step along the way, I thought, I'm going to stop here and not go further. And I didn't. I ended up, somebody would come into my life and help me understand that you can take that next step. And I can remember a number of engineers early in my career while I was still in graduate school. I was contemplating, do I stay and get that ultimate degree, right? Do I get that doctorate degree, or do I get out and practice? And I was really struggling because in my mind, the only people who get PhDs are professors. I didn't realize that there are a lot of folks, especially in engineering and sciences, who get PhDs because they want to work in industry and solve really hard problems. It wasn't until I identified a couple of folks who were in industry, who had gotten that degree, gone to industry, and I latched onto them, and I would reach out to them, and I would ask questions. To me, it was, I'm a young skull full of mush trying to figure out my way in the world, and can I do it if I follow a path like somebody else had followed? Is the world dictated to me because this degree is going to lock me into being a faculty member, which wasn't something I was terribly excited about. But I found mentors. Did I call them mentors then? No. Would I call them mentors today? Yes. Knowing what I know about what a mentor is, they were mentoring me. They were helping me understand what I needed to do to guide my career. And this is my career 30 some years ago when I'm still in school trying to figure out a path out of school. And from there, it just kind of kept blossoming and moving forward.
Also, I want to capture something that you did mention along the path there. You talked about reaching out to folks, but you also mentioned people reaching out to you to help you find a path. And so I want to emphasize that because we have talked about that previously. One of the responsibilities as you get more senior is to look around and say, who are the people you want to see grow in your organization or in your industry? So it sounds like there were mentors who were finding you and saying, he says he has a brain full of mush, but we think he's got something a little bit better than that. And we're going to see if we can't help him grow into areas that he wants to blossom in.
I think you're right, Bill. I don't know that. I don't know what they saw back then. Maybe they saw earlier versions of their own lives, but they saw something in me, and then I really appreciated what they brought to me. They showed me a path. They showed me the possibilities, but they didn't do it by saying, Bill, you need to do this and this and this and this. They came to me and said, where do you want to go? They asked questions. They didn't dictate. And that to me is why as I think back, those people were mentors, right? They weren't dictating a path to me. They were helping me find my own way, but leveraging their knowledge, their expertise, their experience in industry, their experience in academia, helping me figure out my own path, which really to me is an important part of mentorship, right? Whether you're the mentor or the mentee, it can't be about directing. It has to be about letting the mentee find their path and helping them along that way.
Yeah.
I know that all of our listeners are not going to believe that we didn't seed that conversation, but that was perfect, Bill. So thanks very much for that. So I know Angela's dying to get to the next question, but I have to ask you. So have you found that as you've become more senior, you find yourself doing that for the folks who work, who are newer in your organization?
I do. In a couple different ways, right? So we have within the company, and I think this is a great practice, right? So a number of years ago now, this is probably 7-8 years ago now, we made a very concerted effort to identify leadership depth early on, right? So we wanted every manager to have 2 people deep. The proverbial, what happens if you get hit by the bus, right? How are we going to run
Right.
this organization? And it's really not so much about when you get hit by a bus, it's what happens when you get promoted. How
Right.
are we going to fill behind you? And in fact, so many times in my career, in fact, there's a time in my career where I was hoping to take on a new role, to get a promotion, to move up. And one of the things that held me back was I didn't have enough leadership depth behind me. So as a company, we have been focused on leadership depth for a long time. And when you start going into your organization and digging in and saying, okay, I'm a senior vice president, right? So I have 3 vice presidents that report to me. Those vice presidents have directors and group leaders, that manage groups and directorates that report to them. And I want to make sure that I'm at least 2 deep for my position. Why? Well, you never know when I might be called on to do something different, right? I might be called on to take a promotion or a demotion or move laterally within the organization somewhere else. I need to know that the organization will be healthy and will survive and will thrive as I do something different, which means I'm constantly now looking deep into the organization for people who are our next generation of leaders. And when I find them and they make themselves known, then you have those career conversations, right? So it's almost opening the door. I had a great conversation with somebody as part of our sector. The conversation was we're at that time of the year right now, right? Reviews are being done. It's the end of the year. Folks are talking about salary and salary increases. And I had what started out as a difficult situation, or potentially difficult situation, where somebody, wanted to look at a raise. In fact, I've got a number of those that are on my plate that I need to deal with, right? Folks think that they've had an outstanding year. They're really contributing to the organization. And the meeting invite was really around my review and my raise. But what the conversation really was help me plot my path forward. It was an opening the door to plotting the path forward. And that's where I got to ask some questions about what are you looking for in your career? Where do you want to go? What do you want to be when you grow up, right? Do you want to be my boss or do you want my job? And nothing would make me happier than if those folks that I work with, that I'm helping to lead and develop and grow, I want them to have my job someday, or even to be my boss someday. I mean, nothing would make me happier. So yes, Bill, I'm identifying people now that I'm in a senior leadership role, and I'm bringing them along. It's a great story. I had a young engineer that came to me, young in that, only a few years with the company, sought me out at one of our leadership conferences, asked to have a private conversation with me kind of off in the corner quickly, and started right out with, Bill, I'd like to be your boss someday. How do I get there? And this is an individual contributor, not in a management role at all.
Right.
That said, I want a path. I'm new to the company. I've been here maybe 2 years. He was with the company 2 years at the time. I want a path to be your boss someday. I want to be the COO of this company, right? Which is I report to the COO. So
Right.
I was smiling from ear to ear, right? I mean, nothing made me happier. And that individual comes to me on a somewhat regular basis and says, here's where I'm going. What do I need to do next? Or help me, coach me, tell me where I need to go, right? Seeks me out. So I do have some people who seek guidance from me. And I have some people where I go to them and I say, there's something about you. There's something special about you. We ought to develop this, right? So, and it goes both ways. Oh, and by the way, I'm still seeking out guidance from others on how I can take the next step in my career, right? How do I'm not quite done yet. I got quite a bit of gray, but it's
Yeah, I don't know anything about that, but I hear that that's a problem. So, so you're making so many great points here, Bill. Number one, the fact that there are 2 paths mentees can find mentors. One is they come to you and say, help me lay out a path. The other is, and you captured it beautifully, hey, I see something special in you. Let me help you grow further in this career. And so those are 2 phenomenal ways. And then you put icing on the cake when you said, and by the way, I still look for mentors.
Yeah. So, it's funny, Angela, I think in your, early remarks, you talked about how we met recently and leveraging off of the podcast, maybe 2 or 3 podcasts ago, talking about, what to do at a conference and how to go out and network and find people and bring them into your network. Cause you never know when you find a mentor there. At that M conference, I gave a presentation about how I was a candidate to be CEO. And then when I didn't get the job, I'm on the board of directors. So I then took off my candidate hat and I put on my board of directors hat, and I got to sit in there to interview who I eventually voted on and we hired as our next CEO. So in that CEO, maybe I want to be this someday process, I did seek out a number of mentors. Did I call them mentors? Well, in that presentation, I think I called them advisors, right? And I actually described the what did you, Angela? I think you call it the board of directors. Isn't that what I hear?
Yeah.
You're kind of personal board of directors.
Personal board of directors or personal board of mentors. Exactly.
Yeah. So I don't know that I would call them like personal in all aspects of my personal life, but much of my mentoring in my career has been very situational, right? So I want to become a board member. How do I do that? What does it take to be a board member? What does it take to be good as a board member? I sought out people who were on boards and they understood that and they helped me do what was necessary to get to that next step. When I wanted to be a CEO candidate anyway, right? I sought out people, some who were CEOs, some who have interviewed and, been on the CEO selection process, and some who just are individual contributors or managers in companies, but they know what they want in a CEO. So they could help me kind of well-rounded, right? So they some that had that top experience and some that came all the way around it. And I chose that that board of directors, if you will, for the situation of wanting to take that next career step. Right. So
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, and from the beginning of our conversation here, what I've heard, Bill, is you, even when you were a volunteer firefighter, from then on to now, you have sought people who either have had an experience that you would like to have, or that are a role model that you would like to, in some ways, emulate or respect. And those are the people that you seek for mentorship, whether or not you call it mentorship. And that's a big reason why Bill Bonwit and I wanted to share this idea of mentoring in real life, because mentoring in real life doesn't have to be this, big formal word of mentor around it, right? It's advisors like you're talking about. And when we talk about a personal board of directors, it's more like, hey, a company has a board of directors. For me in my life, I have a board of directors as well, and they're mentors in some capacity and in different various ways in my life, right? You also talked about when you have mentees, some of them come to you and make appointments with you. They really kind of formulate the discussion that you have with them, and you really seek that out in mentees, people who are hungry. I'm
Yes.
putting words in your mouth, but people who are hungry for growth, who have identified a goal that they would like to seek and are seeking your help in actually achieving that goal, and that you still today look for mentors as well.
Yes, absolutely. All of the above, right? I'm looking for mentors to help me, in my next steps. I'm supporting people. That conversation that I had earlier today with somebody, which was, allegedly about performance reviews, really ended up being more of a mentorship. It was about
And
career guidance. And it was somebody that I've talked to in the past that I had identified as a future leader, that I've talked to about being a future leader, that I viewed today's conversation when I was, brought into this situation where I needed to kind of help adjudicate some issues around goals and performance reviews and raises. This is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for another one of those conversations to say, Are you on the right track? Are you doing the things necessary? And I was able to talk to this person and know that, yes, I'm hungry. I know what I need to do next. And then we talked about the next steps that can be taken. And, I talked to him about next time I come to visit them face to face and who we're going to go see and, people we're going to go talk to. And it's amazing, right? I mean, it comes at you when you're looking for it, and it comes at you when you're not looking for it. And you have to be open to all of the times where these situations show up so that you can be there and help people wherever they are. And then you hope that the same happens when you're looking for help, right? When you go out to somebody, and sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. But not everybody wants to be a mentor, and that's okay. You hopefully identify those folks that do and latch on to them and then use their guidance and their counsel to help you succeed.
Yeah. Well, then if you could give one piece of advice, 10 words or less, to people looking for mentors, what would you say?
All right, I'm gonna stay to under 10 words, but it's gonna be more than one thought. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Any thought you want to share?
All right, so I'd say choose respected people. Be active, listen, and take action.
Oh, I love that.
That's awesome.
I got 2 words left, but I don't know what they would be.
Choose respected people. Be active, like be an active member in the in the relationship, right?
Yes.
Listen and take
Take
action.
action. Take action, right? You can't just be in the conversation and then do nothing with it, right? You have to take action. You have to follow that up with real action. Yeah. I got 2 words left, but I can't think of what they would be.
Well, I was going to go to be proactive since you clearly are a 7 Habits guy. I heard you say sharpen the saw early in the conversation. So
I am.
And so, but the be proactive point is very related to all the things you laid out. It's choosing a path and choosing to participate and choosing to make a difference for if you want to change what's going on in your life, choose to do something about it.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
beautifully captured, Bill.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we would love to thank you, Bill, for taking the time to share your mentoring experiences with us, both as a mentee and as a mentor. Your all of the advice you gave and the stories you shared were just so relatable and so helpful for both Bill Bonwit and me, and then also our listeners, to learn what it's like to grow up in an engineering role in an organization like yours and seek mentors both internal to your organization as well as external in just your life as well. These are examples of mentoring in real life beyond just Bill Bonwit and my experiences. We sincerely appreciate you being so generous with your time and sharing such valuable lessons from your own mentoring experiences.
Thank you, Angela, Bill. Thank you so much for allowing me to participate. This has been a great conversation.
Bill Bonwit, any last words from you?
I guess I will end by saying we wish you every happiness for the holiday season, Bill. And I will add my thanks to Angela's for a superb discussion. I had to pull back. I wanted to keep digging deeper on a lot of things, but we're trying to keep these things sort of manageable listening time. So thank you again for being with us.
Absolutely. And speaking of holiday seasons, this is our last podcast of 2025, and we will see you all in next year in 2026. Thank you for listening to this episode of Mentoring in Real Life. If you have thoughts or questions, feel free to leave us a comment or send us an email, which we've included in the show notes. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe, rate the podcast, and share with a friend. Until next time, help others climb.